Hey, what is going on, guys? Extra Fusion here, and today I'm going to be ranking every single episode in The Walking Dead Season 9 from worst to best. So in my opinion, Season 9 is one of the greatest seasons of The Walking Dead ever. And when you look at the episodes, you'll know what I mean. Like, there's not one single bad episode in this season. I think it's the only season from the entire show where I don't think there's a single, like, really bad episode. You know what I mean? Not even, like, below average. Most of these episodes are pretty good. They're within the middle usually. Like, there's not too many that are that high up. There's a few at the top you'll see, but the rest of them, even the last spot, they're all pretty, like, just average episodes. None of them are bad necessarily. So I think that has to do with the fact that the Whisper arc is just really great. Let's be real here. And the first 5 episodes, that little arc they had was great as well. And there's just so many communities and characters and storylines going on in the season, and they did a good job of mixing them in with each other. So you didn't have many bottle episodes this season. There was like 1 or 2 at most. So when you remove the bottle episodes, you kind of are able to do a lot more with it, therefore make a lot more entertaining and fun episodes. So I was very, very happy with this season. It's definitely probably my second favorite season of all time. But let's get into the episodes and rank them. Coming in the last spot, it's going to be Stradivarius, which was episode 7. So this episode is not even bad. Like, it's really not. There's only a couple issues I had with it. Some of the scenes with the new group on the road when they were headed to Hilltop, it felt like it was just dragged out. You know what I mean? Like, they had all these different scenes with them. You had them camping out in like one of those buildings overnight, and it was, I guess, a way to kind of give us more about this group, let us learn more about them, but the scenes themselves weren't very entertaining. And then the scenes with Daryl, Carol, and Henry, like Daryl's little camp, those were also kind of dragged on a little bit. I really did like the Hilltop scenes because they were, especially the intro to Hilltop, how they showed the Hilltop in this new world. And you had Rosita on the road freaking out because obviously, you know, what happened in the last episode to her and Eugene. So, like I said, not a bad episode. It's just kind of in the middle. It's the last spot in this entire season, but still pretty damn good. Coming to the 15th spot, I got the premiere, episode 1, which was titled A New Beginning. Same thing, not a bad episode, it's just not that great either. Didn't really feel like it advanced the story that much when you really look at it. You know, it kind of brought us into this new world, you know, showed us the Sanctuary, Alexandria, Hilltop, see how everyone's doing. And it had some pretty interesting scenes, especially with Maggie, and you had the Gregory hanging at the end of the episode, which was pretty insane. But it didn't feel like it advanced it as much as it could have. I do think that stuff with Gregory was probably the most impactful stuff of the episode, which was, you know, and going forward, very, very important. But some of the scenes, like at that like National History Museum they went to, wherever they went, I don't remember exactly where they went to, but that place that they went to, which was in Washington, D.C., had a lot of awesome stuff, but just didn't feel necessary, you know what I mean? But again, not a bad episode at all. I really did enjoy how it brought us to this new world that we were being shown to in the beginning of the season. But I do think that there's a lot of better episodes. I do think there's a lot of better episodes that came out going forward after this. Coming to the number 14th spot, I got the finale, which was titled The Storm. This is probably my least favorite finale. At least one of my least favorite finales. Maybe not. I'm probably like it more than like the season 1 finale or something, but it's a dull for finale. Like, if you're comparing finales, this episode seems like absolute trash, but it's just not that great because it's a finale. If it maybe was a regular episode in the season, maybe I'd like a little bit more, but you kind of expect more from a finale. But the episode itself, it was fine. It just didn't have much happening. They had the whole winter storm happen, which was great to see. This was a very new feeling episode. It was one of the most unique feeling episodes of the entire show. But it was a lot of, like, you could really tell they were in a studio. You could tell they didn't shoot it, like, for the most part at least. A lot of the scenes felt very studio-like, obviously, because it was fake snow, which was really impressive, though. The fact that they were able to get fake snow like that look pretty damn real was awesome. The Negan scenes, when Negan went to go save Judith, everything with Negan in season's great. I mean, same with season 8 and 7. Anything with Negan in it is automatically great, pretty much, except for like a couple different things. For the most part, Negan, everything with him, it's just so good. So seeing him have to save Judith kind of humanized Negan a little bit. That was great. But like I said, everything else just kind of pale for a finale. It was a calm episode. I think it might have been nice to have after episode 15, since episode 15 was so crazy. But I just don't I don't like it as much as a lot of the other episodes. It's still great, though. You had some really emotional scenes with Carol and Lydia as well. Emotional episode, definitely. Coming in number 13th spot, I got episode 14, which was titled Scars. This is actually an episode I think is really overrated. If I was to do the overrated episodes, I would put this episode up there. I know a lot of people give this pretty high praise, and they give it a high praise for the balls it has. I honestly thought it was underwhelming. Now, I had a feeling Michonne killed kids, right? When the episode came up, I was like, oh, that's what fucked her up. She's gonna have to kill these kids, right? Maybe I sound fucked up for saying this, but I feel like showing it all off screen kind of loosens some of the impact. And I know, I get it, they don't want to show kids dying, but like they've showed that before, so it wouldn't be like anything new, you know what I mean? Seeing kids die, I feel like it kind of took away from the impact because it didn't feel like that she was killing kids. It felt like she was slashing her katana in the air, and then they didn't even show the kids' bodies. They kind of showed them from a distance, so I thought that kind of loosened the impact of it a little bit, at least for me. But I did love some of those scenes. I thought it was kind of, it wasn't a great explanation for why the communities were split up. It was a good explanation for why Michonne is so fucked up in the head, at least, well, not fucked up in the head, but why she's so different than she was before. But it didn't give me a good explanation as to why the communities were so apart from each other. We kind of inferred it in our heads, but I just wish they showed it a little bit more, maybe explained it a little bit more, maybe showed a scene or two of Michonne telling Hilltoppers, like, I'm sorry, I'm done, or whatever. Maybe make something happen between them so it would kind of spark. I just didn't like the explanation, is what I'm trying to say here. But I do think the concept for the episode is pretty great. Some of the scenes in current day were fine as well. You had, Lydia, Henry, in Alexandria, and they were chilling around there. And then Judith was doing some scenes where she was going around killing walkers, and Michonne saved her when she was about to get grabbed by one. They had a pretty nice conversation as well. So, a fine episode. I just think it's a bit overrated compared to what some people say. Some people say it's like a top-tier episode, one of the best of the season. I don't think it's that great, but it still is a pretty freaking good episode. Coming in number 12 spot, I got episode 4, which was titled The Obliged. I thought this episode was fine. I remember people liking it a lot more than I did. This might be another overrated episode in my opinion. A lot of the scenes with Rick and Daryl talking in that little hole, which was odd how they got down there, but I did like those conversations between them. That was pretty great. And the ending with Rick getting thrown onto the rebar, I thought that was just insanely intense. I mean, just seeing Rick standing there with the intense music, being just impaled by this rebar, and we all knew next episode was the last episode. That literally made us go, holy shit, is he gonna die here? Is he gonna actually die here? It really freaked people out, but I liked how obviously the next episode continued on with that. Michonne and Negan had some pretty cool scenes with one another. They were talking a lot. That was great. I do think a big negative for this episode was not showing the mayhem that happens at the camp. What I mean by that is, that scene where Carol is pointing a gun at some of the saviors, and then you see like Regina come out with a gun, and then you hear gunshots go off, but you don't show anything. I hated that. And then the next episode, we kind of saw the aftermath of some of the dead bodies, people turned into walkers. Why couldn't they just show the shootout? Because I would like to see what happened there. We never did end up seeing what happened there, so I thought that was a bit underwhelming. But the rest of the episode was fine, I think. I don't think it was anything special, but like I said, it's still not a bad episode. None of these episodes are bad, man. It's such a great way how they were able to do that for this season, how they're able to make so many of the episodes really damn good. Coming in number 11th spot, I got episode 3, which was titled Warning Signs. So this episode was really entertaining with the mystery of the saviors dying, and they were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. That's what the whole episode was really focusing on, and I love how it was Oceanside, because that gives Oceanside such a more important role into the story. I was really disappointed with how Oceanside was used in season 8, because they didn't do shit. They had this big whole episode in season 4 or season 7, and then you had a couple more episodes with them, and it was like, what are they for? What is their purpose? This episode thankfully gave them an actual distinct purpose, and I actually really enjoyed how it was handled and done. I thought it was fucking great, man. I love that scene at the end, and they had a good reason for it. It made you think. It made you kind of understand their side, but also be like, oh, well, you're still killing people who aren't really, are they bad anymore? You know what I mean? And then that convinces Maggie to say, okay, I'm gonna go kill Negan now. And then they end the episode with a great ending with Daryl and Maggie walking off, saying that they're gonna do it, that they're gonna finish what she wanted to do for a long time. This was kind of answering the big question we had at the end of season 8, where Maggie was talking about her, like, you know, working up, you know, their community so they can stand on their own, and then going and just killing Negan because that's what she thought was right. So this was kind of the answer to that, and I really did like how they handled that. I really did like how they gave Oceanside purpose. That alone makes this episode pretty good, at least in my opinion, pretty freaking good. So, and coming in the number 10 spot, I got episode 10, which was titled Omega. So this episode kind of further introduced the Whispers, like kind of gave a little bit of backstory for Alpha's character specifically. We got more of that in season 10, but this was backstory to like the early days of the apocalypse, and we got to see Alpha as well as Lydia, and those flashback scenes were really nice. I liked how they made it so it was like Lydia's memories were kind of messed up. They weren't 100% accurate, and she realized over time in the episode. It did feel like a little too quick for her to just snap and realize, oh, that was completely wrong. But I guess it makes sense, her being away from her mother, she's able to think a little bit more clearly instead of that whisper mindset that she's always been in because of her mother. I like that a lot, and some of the scenes with Henry and Lydia were great as well. It was very much of a slow episode though, so if you're not a fan of those slower, sort of bottle-esque episodes, then you probably wouldn't like this one. I love the ending scene though. I love it. When Alpha walks up to the gates and you have that intense whisper theme playing, and she's just there, she's like, I want my daughter. Great scene, great way to like, they introduce this character a lot, right? You have like the Whispers being introduced in the past couple episodes, and she was kind of introduced, her Alpha herself in the end of last episode, but then this one like officially introduces her and she comes and says, I am Alpha. Like, it's a great build up. Just like they built up Negan very well, they did a very good job with Alpha as well. They have a fantastic way of introducing big villains that most of us know about because of the comics. Such a good way, and I really did appreciate how they handled one of the best parts of the comic books, at least in my eyes. There was a lot of scenes with the new group, which, like I said, I love the new group, but I just wasn't interested in seeing them in like a lot of episodes because they were very put into the story within this season. Like a lot of, you know, screen time for them, which is cool to get to know them, but some of the scenes specifically in this episode I didn't really care for when they were in it, but that's fine. Coming to the number 9 spot, I got episode 2, which was titled The Bridge. So probably the best part of this episode is obviously the part when the walkers attack the whole like log area where they're like chopping up wood, and when they're trying to get some wood for the bridge, obviously, and Aaron loses his arm. That was one of the more shocking moments of this entire season. Like, no one saw that coming, and it just happens, and you're like, holy shit. You know, it wasn't like a walker bite or anything. No, it was just natural causes. And the freaking makeup on his broken arm was just so well done. I think it was mainly CGI, but it was still really well done. It made you feel sick to your stomach. Like, I don't get grossed out by most stuff in The Walking Dead, but that was one of the grossest things we've ever seen. Just seeing his arm just like, it was disgusting, absolutely disgusting, and I love that stuff. So it was great to see it. And then you see Rick come over and he shoots the logs down. It's a really good sequence, but the rest of the episode was mainly just the same from last episode, where it didn't really progress the plot much. It was just kind of reintroducing us to the characters after that long time jump, which was still fine to see. I was fine with it. They were working on the bridge for a while. You had a lot of scenes at the camp and everyone was talking, and Rick was dealing with different people who were not doing, obviously that one dude with the long hair, I forget his name, but he was causing a lot of problems, and Rick had to keep, you know, telling him to get in line. And then obviously at the end of the episode he gets killed. And also we had some pretty interesting scenes in this episode with Negan. It was very end of the episode where they show Negan in the cell. It was really nice to see Negan again, obviously, because I said, big fan of Negan right here. Coming to number 8 spot, I got episode 12, which was titled Guardians. So this was the first episode we had Beta within it. So for the fans of Beta, you freaking love this episode. I mean, personally, I think it was a good introduction to him. It showed off how big and badass he is, just tossing Henry around the whole episode. A lot of brutal gore in this episode too, like when Alpha just like does the little wire around that girl's neck and just chops her head off, which was a little unrealistic, but it was still pretty cool. I think it would have been a little bit better if maybe she struggled a little bit, was going in hard, and it was like a longer scene, and she was like taking the wire and like going back and forth with it, so it actually made sense to chop it off. Because the way she did it, she just went like this, and then the head was off. Like that's unrealistic. But I think if she struggled a little bit and was going hard, it would have been more brutal and also more realistic. But that's not a big deal, obviously. I think you had some pretty cool developments with Daryl and Connie within this episode as well. They had a lot of scenes together, and this is when they started to have that little relationship bond, which didn't really turn into like a relationship, but it's definitely a very good, it's like almost there. Like most people consider it a relationship at this point, but it's like Daryl's just not that type relationship type, you know what I mean? So he's trying to show affection without actually showing it. That's kind of how I take it, but that's obviously in the next season. And the convos between Negan and Michonne, and Michonne being really pissed at Judith for talking to Negan, that was all great stuff, because again, it further humanizes Negan and makes him a little bit different than he was before, because this season really had a hard job of making people like Negan. And obviously I liked him before anyways, but I mean like him as a person, accept him for who he is, and forgive him for what he did to Negan and Glenn. That's important. They really needed to nail that, and I think they did. Personally, I think they did. A lot of people disagree with me, but I think they nailed it pretty well. So this episode was one of the episodes kind of further pushing that, showing Judith's perspective on it. A little kid saying he's a good person now. That was big, and that was awesome. Coming to number 7 spot, episode 6, which was titled "Who Are You Now?" This was kind of like the premiere of the season. It was basically a premiere episode. That's what it felt like, because it was reintroducing us into a brand new world, even newer than the one we saw in the past 5 episodes. This was 6 years later. This is the longest time jump we've ever had, and getting that was so cool. And then going back into the world and just seeing everything happening, everything that's new. You got the Hilltop, Kingdom, Alexandria. They have all these new structures. Like this season, man, they did such a good job with that, and I really applaud the directors, the writers, probably even the budget in general. They had a lot of budget for the season, you can tell, because they rebuilt these damn places to look way different than they did in the previous seasons and previous episodes. Even they made them look like they aged. They made them look like time has passed, and they did a great freaking job with it. I wish we saw more of the Kingdom, because honestly we didn't get enough of the Kingdom. In my opinion, we haven't seen any of it in season 10, because obviously they had to leave it. I hope we see it again someday at least. But this was a great episode to see. Had some whispered teases with Eugene and Rosita out there. You had Negan talking to Judith in the cell, obviously, which I loved that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes of the whole season. I don't know why, but I just love it. That first scene that they talk, when he's talking about the stray dogs and that one of them killed all the other strays. Great scene. And the new characters were introduced as well, and you had the whole council being shown off, and how they handle the society. And then you see, you know, Michonne being kind of different, acting a little different, and you have Carol and Henry going out on the road and getting, you know, coming across these saviors, and then Carol just lighting them on fire. This episode, I kind of want to put it higher now that I'm thinking about it. Never mind. I'm looking at the rest of the episodes. The rest of the episodes are a little bit better. I think once we get to this episode, all of them from here are like great, right? They're all great. So, like I said, I love this season a lot. I think it's such a great season. Coming at number 6 spot, I got episode 9, which was titled Adaptation. Very similar to episode 6 in that a lot of stuff was happening in it. And it wasn't really like action-packed necessarily, but it was still really, really good. So you have the Negan scenes where he escaped from the cell and he went back to Sanctuary. Obviously, me loving Negan, this obviously is going to be something I'm going to love a lot. Just seeing him on his own and having to come back to Alexandria. It was weird because it makes you think, like, they maybe should have done a little bit more with that. Because I just felt like it was Negan gave up too quickly. You know what I mean? Almost a little, I don't know. Maybe they should have kept it going for a couple more episodes of him being out there, but maybe coming back on his own would have been more impactful. But Judith capturing him kind of was a little odd to me. But I don't know, it was okay. It was still great how it was. And then obviously you had Lydia getting captured and introduced, which Lydia, and I've said this many times, I think Cassidy is one of the best actresses on the entire show who plays Lydia. She's fantastic. And she does a great job in this episode, an absolutely fantastic job to make you really feel like almost bad for her, but at the same time you're like sketched out because you're like, yeah, she's definitely lying. So it was really great seeing those scenes, and especially the one when Daryl was holding the knife to her face and Henry was like yelling and shit, and the way they built that thing up, and then they're obviously teasing the whole Henry and Lydia stuff that came a little bit later. Very, very well done. I was very, very happy with how they handled this episode, how they handled Lydia. And the beginning of the episode was also pretty intense, coming back with all the whispering and stuff in the woods that they were in. It was just it was just a great episode. Like I said, another freaking great episode. And now we're getting to the top 5. Coming to number 5 spot, I got episode 11, which was titled Bounty. So another great episode, and this was obviously the Hilltop Confrontation episode. You had those scenes, and then you also had some Kingdom scenes where they were doing this mission to get this like bulb for like a movie player or something, which I didn't love those scenes. Like I said, there was not many stakes there, but it was nice to see Carol and Ezekiel and Jerry. So, you know, it wasn't terrible, but it just definitely wasn't the good stuff from this episode. The good stuff obviously came from the Hilltop Confrontation and everything going on there. I mean, it was intense. You had no idea what the hell was going to happen. And I'm glad that they were able to make a safe trade without any people just dying. That's very rare in this show. To see that was showing that they have very different, I guess, possibilities in all these different circumstances. And I enjoyed that scene. You also had the scenes in the cornfields with Connie, and those were intense because she's obviously deaf. It made the scenes way more intense. And how they did it, how they directed it was very well done as well. I was happy with that. And then you had Henry and Lydia kissing at that one scene, and people said that was a little bit rushed, but I was like, if you've you know, been around teenagers or lived as a teenager, you would know that a lot of teenagers get into that shit really quick. They get attached, at least some get attached really quick, and they go on one date and they're in love. So honestly, I don't think it's unrealistic that they fell in love that quick. Well, at least that Henry did. You can tell Henry was in love with her. I don't think she was, but you know what I mean. It was still really well done in terms of some of the dialogue that was between them and such. And then Enid coming in and talking about Carl and such, like, really great stuff. I love this scene when she's bringing her out, or they're bringing Lydia out to do the trade, and they see them, you know, go over, and Alpha just smacks her, and then everyone's just looking at this, and then she hugs her and then smiles. Like, it shows how sinister she is, and they do a great job at really making you know that, you know what I mean? So now we're in the top 4. Every episode here on out I would consider to be amazing, and the top 2 being like masterpieces almost. But coming in the number 4 spot is going to be episode 8, which was the mid-season finale, which was titled Evolution. This episode was just scary and intense, man. You had the Whisper action at the end of the episode, which was great. It was a little too foggy for me. It was a little hard to see through some of the scenes, but if you're watching on a really good TV with perfect brightness, which is kind of rare, but if you do that, it is much easier to see. And it was great. That scene when Jesus gets killed, one of the coolest and best directed scenes in the entire franchise of The Walking Dead. I loved it. It was just perfect. The way he swings. I watched it like 20 times over when it first happened because I just loved how it looked. People's reactions to it was awesome as well. The way he just swings, and then the dude ducks, and then just stabs him, and it's like, holy shit. And then the lightning comes as you're looking at him, and he looks terrifying, and it's just one random whisper. And one of my biggest problems with season 10 is that the whispers aren't scary anymore. They completely lost that for some reason in season 10, and we're not going to complain about season 10 this whole video, but I would like to just quickly say that I don't feel like the whispers are threatening in season 10. The only characters I feel like are threatening are Alpha and Beta, really. And that's why I get so frustrated with season 10 stuff, is because the whispers are like trash. They kill the whispers so easily. But in this episode, they were terrifying. Some random whisper kills Jesus. They were terrifying, and I loved that. And I'm, like I said, again, disappointed with how some of this stuff turned out. Even though I don't hate season 10, I do like season 10. I just think some of the whisper stuff was a little disappointing. Like I said, not the time for that. The Henry scenes were fine as well. I mean, like, a lot of people didn't like them, but they were necessary because we needed to get Henry into the cell. But did we need as much as we did? Maybe not, but there weren't too many scenes with them, to be completely honest. So I was kind of fine with them. Great episode, man. That ending made the episode, though. The rest of it was like, if you didn't have the ending like 10 minutes, it would be like a pretty good episode, but not amazing, you know what I mean? So coming to the number 3 spot, I got episode 13, which is titled Chokepoint. So this is obviously the pilot of the episode was Daryl versus Beta, obviously. Daryl versus Beta was a very anticipated fight. I loved the fight. I do wish it was a little bit better. I think that's something with a lot of stuff in The Walking Dead, like I said with season 8. There's a lot of stuff that is already pretty great, It's just, you know, it could be better if they put maybe just a little bit more work into it. Like, I do think this fight could have benefited from being maybe a minute longer. I think that would have been a little bit cooler, but for what it was, still really, really great. I do also wish it was a little bit more brutal. Like, I feel like they got out of it, like, uninjured. Like, there was no really major injuries. I think Daryl versus Alpha was more what this should have been. Daryl versus Alpha was, like, in season 10, crazy. It was short, but people that were stabbed, you had a knife, you know, they had like all sorts of wounds on you, and they were like bleeding, they were almost dead when they were done with it. I feel like I wanted that from this fight. And don't make it unrealistic, obviously. Make it so the injuries they get, they can still live from, but make it so it's at least, like, I think it would have been better if Daryl got his ass kicked, I'll be honest. Because I don't like how Daryl beat Beta in it. I kind of wish Daryl got his ass kicked, and then we see him beating Beta within season 10, which we haven't gotten an episode yet, which we're probably going to see another fight between the two. But like I said, I mean, I can't wait for that rematch, but I still think it would have been a little bit more impactful if he lost first and then beat him a second time, kind of like a Rocky deal, you know what I mean? The Whisper action, though, was pretty great. You had Henry kicking ass, you had Connie kicking ass, you had Lydia there, Dog kicking ass. It was a great action for the Whisperers, and it was like it was great scenes. So you had the Highwaymen stuff as well. I liked the Highwaymen stuff. I thought they were a cool group, but looking back on it, what the hell was the point of that group? There was almost no reason for them to even be there. They didn't do anything going forward. Some of them died, and then you had one in season 10 that was kind of a bitch, but that's about it. Like, we didn't really need them. I think they could have done more with them. Maybe they will in the future. Maybe I don't even know if there's more of them left, to be honest. But I thought they were a cool, like, they were comedic at least, and then they come and save like Tara and them on the road, which was kind of funny. But great episode, like I said, an amazing one. But now we get to the top two. These two episodes are both within my top 10 favorite episodes of the entire show. Coming number 2 spot. This was really hard, honestly. These two episodes are really close to each other, I would say. I had a really hard time deciding which one I wanted to be number 1 or number 2. And I had to like just completely rewatch them and just like get a really good eye, because I rewatched this whole season recently. I had to rewatch them again just to get a further understanding of these episodes. I decided to put episode 5 in the number 2 spot, which was titled What Comes After, and this was Rick's final episode. I really wanted to put it in the number 1 spot, but I just think it's not as good as the next one. There's just more stuff in the next one that I like even more than this one. So What Comes After had the great flashback scenes with, you know, Shane, and you had Herschel coming back. Sasha, they got whatever actors they could, really, to be honest. But I would have preferred someone like Glenn, Carl, even Lori would have worked, honestly. Anyone else, but they probably just had to, they were asking around like, oh, what characters can return, and Sasha was available, so they got Sasha. Really no importance to her character in terms of Rick, you know, the relationship between him, and there was none there, so I felt like that was just weird. I would have even taken like Dale or something, but he wouldn't come back, obviously. But you get the idea. Still, the flashbacks were great, though, especially the ones with Shane and Herschel. I adored those scenes. And then you had him going through, you know, the dead bodies, which was obviously the Sasha scene, but that was still really intense. This episode was just intense all around. Just emotional roller coaster, because you didn't know if Rick was going to live or die, unless you saw the spoilers, obviously. And personally, I did see the spoilers, so it wasn't as impactful, but it was still nice to like have that for other people who didn't see spoilers. They were still like, I don't know what the hell's going to happen here. And I think they did a good job of faking us out. I don't like fake outs, but they didn't fake us out for that long. They faked us out for like a minute or two. And when fake outs don't last that long, I don't mind them at all. Like The Rise of Skywalker, when they faked us out thinking Chewie was dead. I didn't mind that, because 2 minutes later they show us that he's alive, so it's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? I don't mind fake outs when they don't last that long, and this one didn't last that long, and we knew he was alive, and then I'm glad they told us about the Rick movies. I think it would have been cooler if they said Rick Grimes will return at the end, instead of forcing me to watch Talking Dead to know about it. But at the same time, I remember the day when I learned about Rick Grimes movies. Oh my god. So I have my reaction video up on YouTube on my main channel. If you guys want to go watch it, I was watching my friends. People hated that reaction video because I was watching with my friends and stuff. But you can't see my reaction to this, but when I stopped recording, I was still watching Talking Dead just to see what they were saying. And we were in like this, like my friend's, like, he works for the EMS, so we were in this like building where they have like a recreational hall for the EMS or whatever, and we were watching it there. And when they said it, I was jumping up and down in excitement, screaming in happiness. It was the cool. I was so happy to hear Rick Grimes is gonna have movies. Oh my god, that was great. But I loved also the soundtrack in this episode. They had a couple great pieces of music. The Negan and Maggie scene was great, and they had a glimpse into the future at the end of the episode, seeing Judith. Awesome stuff, man. Such a great episode. The #1 spot has got to go to episode 15, which was titled The Calm Before. The only negative I have about this episode, I'll just get the negative out of the way, right? Is the choices for the Pike victims. I loved the Pike scene. The scene was perfectly directed, perfectly edited, perfectly. The soundtrack was amazing. The acting was great. Everything was great. I was not a fan of the choices for the victims. And I'm not going to say the whole episode's bad because of the characters that died in it. That's as cringy as people saying that episode 809 is trash because Carl died in it. That's stupid. No. This episode was fantastic. A near masterpiece. But I didn't like the choices. I was okay with Henry. I could accept it. I hated it at first, but I could accept it. I don't think that was the best option. Tara, that was the worst written death in history because there was no impact for her character's death. Nothing happened because of it, right? Enid, we just lost Carl. Why lose Enid too? You know what I mean? I feel like Alden would have made more sense. And then all the other characters, a couple of them were fine choices, but some of them were just such random characters that we like interacted with like once or twice. There was like, if the audience goes, who is that? Then it's not a good choice. You know what I mean? I know they need to put some side characters there, but at least show those side characters, like, at least within the past couple episodes, more and more. And they actually kind of did do that, but you got to make them more in the forefront so even the casual audience knows who each of the characters are. I knew who all of them were because I'm a pretty big fan of the show, but casual audiences may not. I just didn't like the choices. And a lot of people argue with me. They're like, well, the choices were supposed to be random to show that Alpha was picking randomly, but it's a TV show. She can pick randomly, but it'll still end up being the characters that make the most sense for the story. You know what I mean? And honestly, they could have had those same exact characters, but worked it around. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily the characters themselves who bothered me. It was the fact that these characters that they chose didn't have much importance as a whole. If they showed these characters more in this season, if they had these characters do a little bit more, have the impact be a little bit more afterwards, because only a few of the characters actually made an impact. Like Henry's death made an impact, Enid's death, the two kids made a pretty big impact. Obviously, Amy Rose made a pretty big impact, but a couple of the ones like didn't at all. I think that's not a good thing in my eyes. I feel like they could have done something a little bit better, but it was perfectly directed. Everything else about it was great. The fair was awesome to see it in action. It was a really fun scene. They had this one shot where Henry and Lydia were walking, and it was just one take all the way through, and you were just looking all around, seeing everything that was going on in the fair, and it was a magical sight to see within The Walking Dead. And the scene with Michonne, Daryl, and Carol in the woods, intense, right? The Whisperers all come, and they're standing there all around each other. Maybe Yumiko was there as well. That was intense. They didn't have any crazy action happen, but still intense. And then the Whisperer herd being shown to Daryl. This episode isn't even action-packed, but it doesn't have to be. This proves that you don't need a bunch of action for it to be a masterpiece of an episode. This episode is that without any action, just like the premiere of Season 7. No action, but still fucking amazing. This is another example of that. Like I said, adore this season. I think it's one of the best, top 2 at least. But that pretty much wraps up this video. That also kind of wraps up this whole season ranking episode thing, because Season 10 we haven't gotten the final episode, so there's no point of ranking Season 10 until we get the final episode. Once we do get that final episode, I'm also going to rank all 10 seasons from worst to best. Also, like I said, also rank Season 10 episodes from worst to best. Then we're going to rank the top 50 or 25. I don't know which one I want to do yet. It might just be 25. Top 25 or 50 episodes of the entire show from worst to worst to best, in my opinion. Not every episode we're just going to do 25 or 50. I don't want to burn myself out. We're going to do in between that time, though, because we don't know when that finale is coming, we're going to do stuff like ranking my top 25 favorite characters in the show. We might do a couple other rankings. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe top 10 kills, top 10 deaths, top 10 walker kills, top 10 scenes. I don't know. We'll think of stuff to do in the meantime. These videos take a while to do, I'll be honest, because not only do I have to rewatch the season, I have to put together the ranking, put together bullet points for the ranking, put together the recording, which takes a little bit, put together the editing, which is the big chunk of time that it takes. It's not a fast process, and that's why I haven't been able to upload every single one of these on every Sunday. Sometimes I've been a little bit late, sometimes I have to skip a week. Hopefully, I can get back on track a little bit more during the summer, but like I said, it's crazy, because even though we have this crazy shit going on right now with the pandemic, which is kind of slowing down a little bit, I'm still busy with a lot of stuff. I really didn't think I would be, but I still am. And the channel is something I want to stick to, but I do have a main channel to work on. I have my streams as well on Twitch, so there is a lot to work with, you know what I mean? So hopefully you guys enjoyed, though. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in my next one. Peace out.